Hello everyone, this is Jotto and welcome to the Hearthstone Weekly Show. Now, for this episode, it's not really week anymore, is it? I mean, I kind of do two of these every so often, but anyway. So, for this episode, we have Blackrock Mountain, not Cavern. Spoilers, now I haven't done one of these in 2 weeks, and basically, short breakdown as to why. We got these two. One of them warranted being talked about. I was thinking, yeah, let's wait until the end of the week. Maybe I can get a couple more. That's what I used to do with Naxxramas. And then we got these two, and I was thinking, I don't want to talk about these in their own episode. But then, earlier today, I came across these things, which I do want to talk about. So we're going to go across these in chronological order. I'm going to start with Lava Shock and end with the Imp Gang Boss. So, starting with the Lava Shock. Now, Lava Shock is a 2-mana shaman spell at rare. Now, keep in mind that the rarity only matters in one regard, which is arena and legendaries. Legendaries, because you can only play one, and arena, because how often you see them. So anyway, it's a 2-mana shaman spell that's a rare. Deal 2 damage, unlock your overloaded crystals, mana crystals. Now, first thing first, it was actually kind of hilarious. When they spoiled this, the first thing that happened was people getting confused as to what it does. Now, just to explain this. So, unlocking your overloaded mana crystals can either mean one of two things. Either you play it on your overload turn when everything's overloaded, and then you unlock all of them and you get more mana, or you stop the overload from happening entirely. So you play Lightning Storm, you play Lava Shock, and now you don't have overload. So we all lost Ben Brode, and it turns out it does both. So that's going in its favor. Now, Lava Shock is probably the most argued about card so far from the set in terms of its playability, besides maybe Hungry Dragon. Lava Shock did have a lot of discussion going back and forwards on it, simply because no one has any idea whether it's playable, good, underpowered, overpowered. It's just weird. Now, I'll just go over its positives and its negatives, and I'll do my ridiculous prediction that will either be correct or people are going to laugh at me when we actually do the set review and have played with it for a bit. So, Lava Shock, it's 2 mana for 2 damage. That's terrible. That is straight bad, especially in a class that has Rockbiter Weapon, Lightning Bolt, Crackle, Power Mace. Like, they have so many ways of dealing damage efficiently, and Lava Shock does not deal damage efficiently. It just doesn't. Now, the question is, unlocking Overload, how useful is that? Now, keep in mind that you're spending 1 extra mana minimum over Rockbiter. You're spending 1 extra mana, or even with Lightning Bolt. Lightning Bolt, you only have to spend 1 mana on the turn you play it. Like, Overload is not equal to 1 mana. I know people have said, hey, Lightning Bolt's 2 mana. It's not 2 mana. Crackle does not cost 3. It just doesn't. Costs like 2.5 basically, because you can plan your turns out. So how much mana do you need to unlock to make this good? 1 is okay, because then it costs 1, but not really, because you play, like, if you play on turn 3, it doesn't really cost 1 because you can't play a 2-drop with it. You only have 1 mana left. That's the reason it doesn't really cost 1. It's a bit confusing in the way mana works with unlocking overloaded crystals, because if you unlock 2 overload, it does not pay for itself. It doesn't. Now, the reason for this is because, say if you play it on turn 4. Now, if you have 2 overloaded crystals because you played Feral Spirits, for example, you Lava Shock something, and yes, you gained 2 mana, but you still can't play on curve. That's the thing, you can't play on curve. And as a result, it's not the same as gaining mana. It just isn't, because it locks up 2 of your mana to unlock the others. It's a bit strange in that regard. The other thing is it can't accelerate you. It just can't. What this is supposed to do is supposed to let you curve out. Now, when is this relevant? The 2 major terms it's relevant is turn 5, you can play an Overload spell, and then Lava Shock, and then Fire Elemental on turn 6. That is powerful. That is super strong, going Lightning Storm, Lava Shock, clear his board, next turn Fire Elemental. That is a ridiculous curve that I want to do a lot. The other time this is very good is on your Neptulon turn. You play, now I'm talking about turn 9, 10. Because, quite frankly, Neptulon is not good on turn 7 most of the time, because he overloads you too much. You only have 5 mana next turn, it's just not, you can't dump your Murlocs off that. So, you don't really want to play them on turn 7. But say you go Neptulon Lava Shock on turn 9, then on turn 10 you have 10 mana. 10, that's a big deal. You have 10 mana, you can play all your Murlocs, you can keep playing. That gets rid of 3 Overload. The real question is, 10 mana is a big deal, but for Shaman I'm not so sure. Now here comes the negative point against Lava Shock, besides the weird mana curving thing that isn't even negative, it's just kind of making people understand how that mechanic actually works. It's not mana gain, it's something weird. I don't know how the mathematics work out, but the point is it's not flat mana gain, it's mana efficiency of other spells. But the kind of annoying thing is that you're playing Shaman, which means Lava Shock late game is pretty useless. Now, the reason for this is because, I've said this before with Overload, but Overload spells curve with each other. Now, why is this? Because they're supposed to do more than their cost. Lightning Storm is ridiculous with 3 mana, but you have 2 Overload. However, Overload spells curve with each other. Now, what do I mean by this? So you play Lightning Storm turn 3. You now only have 2 mana next turn. So you crackle their guy, which would normally cost 3 mana, basically, or maybe even 4. So, yeah, you crackle the guy, depending on what it rolls, it's just ridiculous. So you kill the guy. Then, next turn, you have, what, 4 mana? Oh, that seems okay, actually. You have 4 mana, you can play down your Feral Spirits, you can play down a Shredder. The point is that they have Overload costs, but the Overload only prevents you from playing non-Overload spells because they are cheaper by nature. Now, when is this relevant? Turn 6, that is when it is relevant. Turn 5 sometimes, depends on the composition of your hand, but turn 6 is the major one. Turn 6 prevents you from fire elementaling. So, is that even a word? Elementaling? Anyway, it stops you from playing your fire elemental. So, the question is Lava Shock worth it to play on your turn 5 to make it super powerful, knowing that you have a 2 mana deal 2 damage spell in your deck? I'm not sure. I don't think it is. Now, there is another side to this, which has been coming from some of the people who have tried this kind of deck before, but the amount of burn in Shaman is reaching critical mass to the point where they only need 1 or 2 more cards, and then the deck just runs things through, and that has a lot of overload in that deck. So Lava Shock will get rid of that and let you just throw out your burn spells faster. That is something I can get behind. Now the question is it good enough? I don't know. But in terms of standard Shaman, I actually don't like Lava Shock, even though it's been hyped up a lot, actually. So anyway, there's my 8 minutes on Lava Shock, basically. Yeah, trust me, the rest of the cards I will not be talking about that much for the next, 3? Yeah. Axe Flinger, 4 mana, 2/5, warrior, common. 2/5 for 4. Weird body, not a good place to start because 3/5s are everywhere. But anyway, whenever this minion takes damage, this is actually the first. This is the first card that showcases the sort of pseudo theme that's been going through the set. Actually, there's a lot of when it takes damage stuff in the set. But anyway, when this thing takes damage, it deals 2 damage to the enemy hero. This is terrible. It's just flat bad. There is one reason for this card existing, and it's to appear on Warrior OTK decks on like Trollden's videos and Hysteria's. That's like it. That's the only reason this card exists. It fits in the fun category, and there's, in my opinion, there's 3 categories for cards made by Blizzard. There's, at least Hearthstone-wise, I don't know about WoW TCG, but Hearthstone-wise, there's cards made to be fun. These are fun cards, which are RNG cards like Grim Patron? Yeah. Grim Patron. Yeah, that's it. That fits in that category. So does like funky stuff like that goes all over the place, like Stone Skin Gargoyle and things like that. So there's the fun category. Then there's the competitive category. Now this could either be arena or constructed, where it's just designed to hammer those formats to death. Then there is this like weird flashy middle ground thing that aren't even supposed to be, they're not supposed to be fun, they're just supposed to do really crazy things. Rend Blackhand's an example of this. It's not particularly fun, but it's really flashy. Ragnaros kind of fits in that category, although it's spilled into the competitive side of things as well. Now, Axe Flinger fits between the splashy category and the fun category. If anyone makes this anywhere near constructed worthy, I will be astonished. Simply because I do not see it working in any way. There's easier ways to deal damage. You do not need Axe Flinger. And stop with your Wild Pyro combos. It just doesn't work. It does not work. You can deal your infinite damage, but that's providing that your opponent is a goldfish swimming around his bowl. So, yeah, this is not going to work. Just stay away from the Axe Flinger. He's a bad card. Oh, we're not getting much better. Dragon Egg. 1 mana, 0/2, rare. Whenever this minion takes damage, summon a 2/1 whelp. Alright, before we go anywhere, I have a complaint to make. Why is it called a whelp? The reason this is annoying is because there are 2 cards in the game right now that make whelps. Leroy Jenkins and Onyxia. They are 1/1s. Call it a hatchling. Don't call it a whelp. It's annoying. There's going to be a 2/1 whelp now in the game and a 1/1 whelp. That's infuriating. But anyway, besides that sort of weird thing that's going to come up every so often and just annoy people, this card is terrible. Stop talking about it. There's been a bunch of people talking about it, and actually the funniest thing I've seen about this card so far was literally a deck called the Omelette or something. It was just 10 Hellfires, 10 Nerubian Eggs, and 10 Dragon Eggs. Just straight up Omelette deck. Omelette lock, yeah. It's not good. It just isn't. It is a 1 mana 0/2 that you need to activate to get a 2/1. A 1 mana 2/1 is not playable. Let alone a 1 mana 2/1 that you need to go through hoops to get. Like, there is only one synergy that makes this card anywhere near, not playable, but anywhere near respectable in a game, which is Cruel Taskmaster. Cruel Taskmaster makes it into a 2/1, summons a 2/1, then you trade, makes another 2/1. That is good interaction. But this is not a good card. Stay away from it. If you want your egg deck, you play the 2-drops from Naxxramas. You play Haunted Creeper, you play Nerubian Egg. You stay away from the Dragon Egg. It's really bad. Something else it does do, however, is make Hungry Dragon better. In fact, I recently went through all the 1-drops and discovered that the average attack of a 1-drop is 1.3. Meaning Hungry Dragon is effectively a 4 mana 5/5. So that's a thing. But anyway, yeah, so Dragon Egg is terrible, stay away from it. Next, Dragonkin Sorcerer. 4 mana 3/5 dragon, relevant. Common, also relevant for Arena. Whenever you target this minion with a spell, gain +1/+1. Now, before we go anywhere, there's actually something funny with this wording, and I'm glad Hearthstone doesn't take wording literally like you have to in paper card games, because if it did, you could literally just drag a spell onto the Sorcerer and keep mousing over it and it get infinitely large. I mean, obviously it means when you cast a spell that targets the Sorcerer, but it's just funny. So, Dragonkin Sorcerer is okay. Now, he's okay because he has a interesting ability, not that good, but it's relevant with things like spare parts. That does work. You can throw out some spare parts in this guy that you randomly have lying around. He's a okay pick in Arena because he gets small buffs. And also, he's hard to kill with spells because he gets buffed before the swipe or any spell comes and actually hits him. However, there is a reason this guy won't see constructed play at all, unless he's like a random one-off, like Mechanical Yeti is in the mech mages. The reason is, he's a dragon, yes, but unfortunately there is this guy that exists, the Hungry Dragon, which quite literally eats the Sorcerer. You can't play Sorcerer because Hungry Dragon is just massive. So you just can't play the Sorcerer. It's the same thing that happened with Shredder and Mechanical Yeti, where one of them is played as a one-off just for consistency's sake, and actually would not be played if there was another 4-drop mech, really, because Shredder is way better. So this is in the same category, so the Sorcerer is unfortunately pretty bad. This is something which comes up in spoiler season a lot, where you kind of wish this was spoiled before this was, because now that this was spoiled first, this is useless and no one even cares about it. Yeah, it's that kind of stuff. So you want to swap these around. So yeah, the Hungry Dragon pretty much tramples the Sorcerer into the dust. So anyway, on to the 3 cards spoiled today. Now, so far, as you may have noticed, Not much in terms of the constructed powerhouses out of the last week or so. That's where we get onto these 3 cards. Now, I'm just going to get the bad one out of the way first, being the Gore Rager. 4 mana, 4/4 beast, rare. Battlecry, if your hand is empty, gain +3/+3. Now, this is Battlecry, not persistent effect. This is terrible. Absolutely atrocious. The amount of people I've seen talking about this being a good card is really baffling, because it does showcase that people don't know how Hearthstone actually plays out, and they don't realize until they play with the cards. Now, there's multiple reasons this is bad. First things first, your hand is not empty as Hunter. It just isn't. Why? Because you have Kill Command and Unleash the Hounds in your deck. You also have things like Savannah Highmane if you're playing the slower variants. What does this mean? You don't have an empty hand. You have Kill Commands and Leashes that are situational and stay in your hand until they're needed. And a Highmane will come down after the Core Rager, and as a result will block its effect. Same with Dr. Boom or Ragnaros if you're playing the higher end mid-range Hunters. So, first of all, the effect will not trigger, and a 4 mana 4/4 beast is worse than in Lost Tool Strider, which isn't played anyway. What else is bad with this? Even if you trigger it, it gets big game huntered immediately. I'm actually really annoyed that this isn't like a 3 mana 3/3 or a 3 mana 3/4 that had when your hand was empty +3/+3. That would be a playable card. That'd be pretty good actually. But it's not that. Instead, it's a big game hunterable Core Rager that isn't very good anyway. Yes, Big Game Hunter is a massive drawback. I've had this discussion with people a lot when GBG came out about Malorn and things like that. If something gets Big Game Huntered, it is almost out of the question. It's almost unplayable. The only playable Big Game Hunter targets are things like Alex Straza, which takes him to 15 immediately. Ragnaros, which does 8, and even that's not really playable, and only in Control Warrior, basically. And then Boom, because he leaves Boom bots behind, which kill the BGH, and then some of his other stuff. So BGH does knock out anything that gets to 7 attack, basically. So Core Rager, bad card. The 3-drops, however, are very good. Flamewaker, and I have been calling this Flamewalker way too many times because you just read it as Walker. To the point when I am advocating for calling this guy Mr. Slither, simply because he's a snake. Well, he's not a snake, but he doesn't have legs, is the point. Technicality alert, but anyway, 3 mana 2/4 rare, so you won't be seeing him in Arena that much, but he's pickable in Arena just off stats. After you cast a spell, that's the Wild Pyromancer wording, deal 2 damage randomly split among all enemies. Now, that's half a Blast Mage ability. That's insane. I don't know where this goes, but that seems ludicrously powerful. I don't know if it's powerful enough, but I'll put this just down where you can actually play Flamewaker on turn 3, coin spare part. That is a Blast Mage with no mech requirement. That's kind of insane, actually. Now, the problem is that the mech deck does not want another 3-drop. That's basically how that goes. They already are overdosing on 3-drops, basically. So, well, I mean, I say overdosing. They basically, most of them only play one Tinkertown Technician because it's a bit awkward when he clogs, and then you've got Spider Tank Harvest Golem. This is too many 3-drops. However, I think that could be a duplicate mage that plays this thing. Why? Because you play your duplicates off your Kirantors, for example, and you get 2 damage for free. And then if it gets duplicated, your opponent wants to kill himself because you basically have a Blast Mage trigger every time you play a spell. Unstable Portal triggers this, Frostbolt triggers this. These are like the well-known spells. And in Arena, Flame Striking with a Flamewaker on the board is brutal. Because the Flame Strike happens first, then the trigger. That's important. It also means that for things like... It basically makes your Flamewaker RNG better. That's basically how it works. It makes your Flamewaker RNG better, and it stops it from losing damage on AoEs. So, as a result, if you play your board wipe, it will have a higher chance of hitting the stuff that it needs to hit. Now, it can go to the face, which could screw you over, but can also make this thing into a 3 mana 4/4 when it's attacking and nothing else is on the board, which is a bit insane. So, in other words, it is the Spell Knife Juggler Mage Wanted. No one asked for it, but Mage Wanted, basically. Mage players went nuts when they saw this thing. Not quite sure how much play it's going to see. We'll have to see the rest of the set, but I think this thing has potential. Now, speaking of things that have potential, the last card, Imp Gang Boss. One of the single best names on a card in the entire game. That thing is hilarious. 3 mana, 2/4 demon. Warlock card, obviously. If it's a demon, it's a common. Whenever this minion takes damage, summon a 1/1 imp. First of all, slam in arena. This thing is insane in arena. Just pick it. Second of all, Warlock has been missing a 3-drop. This has been a big deal in the demon decks, they don't have a 3-drop, and also in Zoo. Basically, Zoo is non-existent right now, and the reason for it is because the only Zoo variant that can actually compete in any way is Mech Zoo, which is worse than Mech Mage, therefore Zoo is bad. That's basically how it's gone. Now, part of the reason for this is because the traditional Zoo decks don't have a 3-drop. They just don't. They play Harvest Golem and that's it, and at that point it's just like, well, I'm playing Harvest Golem, let's play Mech Warpers. And if I'm playing Mech Warpers, let's play Tinker Towns. And if I'm playing Tinker Towns, it just gets out of control. So, Imp Gang Boss is supplementing that guy, and people are saying, he's nowhere near Harvest Golem. What are you talking about? He's actually kind of similar. It's scary how similar this guy is. So let's compare him to Harvest Golem. If he dies in one shot, which will almost never happen, I might add, if you're the aggro deck, because he has 4 health. So if he dies in one shot, then he does 2 retaliation damage, and you get a 1/1 imp. Now compare that to Harvest Golem, where you get a 2/1. Now because whenever he takes damage, it also means that it applies the same way as the Death Rattle does when it comes to AoEs, because AoE damage is synchronized. So he will leave a 1/1 behind. Now, the actual way this is probably going to turn out is that you're going to get 2 1/1s out of this guy, which is better, way better, than a 2/1. Now, why is this way better than 2/1? Because Defender of Argus abuses Sergeant. I mean, we've seen from Muster for Battle that splitting things over multiple bodies is usually better. And in this case, a 2/1 is very easy to deal with Hero Powers. 2 1/1s will leave you a 1/1. So, yeah, the 1/1s are going to do a ton. Now, something else which is kind of a hilarious interaction is Imp Gang Boss with a Flamewaker on their side. They play a spell, and then you get more imps that absorb more damage, and then you get more imps that absorb more damage. It's kind of funny how that interaction works. But yeah, the Imp Gang Boss is a ton of value, and he is a common in Arena that is forcing you into Warlock. They got their floating... They're floating 6/6s basically from the last set for their arena runs. Whenever you take damage, it gains +2/+2, and now they have Imp Gang Boss filling in that Harvest Golem slot where you have twice as many Harvest Golems as your opponent basically. So love the boss, love the Waker. The rest I'm not so sure about. Lava Shock has some potential, but yeah, you can probably see why I decided to do the spoiler show now, where we have 2 very constructed playable 3-drops. What is it with 3-drops? Look at this. Alright, so we've got Imp Gang Boss, 3 mana 2/4, constructed playable in my opinion. Flamewaker, 3 mana 2/4, constructed playable in my opinion. Blackwing Technician, 3 mana 2/4, constructed playable. What is it with the 3 mana 2/4s? I mean, if 3 mana 2/4s are a thing, then that's just kind of hilarious. But yeah, 3-drops are getting good. Naxxrama's put out some of the best 2-drops we've ever seen, and it looks like this set's theme is 3-drops, which is kind of funny to me. I guess we're getting the 4-drop set, like, next time. But anyway, that's pretty much it for the spoiler show for me. Thank you all for watching. If you like the content, please subscribe. If you want to talk about any of the cards or just have any feedback, put it in the comment section below. Best analysis from Jotto, signing off.